Okay, so what I've got for you today is one of the most exciting matches of StarCraft 2 that was recently played during the ESL Masters European Regionals. I've been looking forward to casting this particular match for a while now, and I've finally gotten around to doing so. Here's the thing. Somebody posted a highlight clip of this particular match to the StarCraft 2 subreddit of a certain fight, a certain engagement that takes place, I think, near the end of the match. I've never seen a fight like that before, at the very least not that I remember, at the very least not over the last couple of years. Even though I've been playing, watching, casting this game for like 13 years now, so I'm very excited to find out exactly how we ended up getting there and who ends up winning this match. So spawning right here in the top left hand corner of a map called Oceanborn, playing with the blue Protoss pieces. We have the man who was considered to be the best Protoss player from Europe for like the first 10, 11, 12-ish years of StarCraft 2's existence, as we're looking inside of the main base of ShoWTimE. However, over the last year or so, his opponent is the man who overtook that role, playing with the red Protoss probes. We have an absolute Protoss versus Protoss monster. We're looking at MaxPax's main Nexus. Alrighty, now, luckily for me, generally speaking, Protoss versus Protoss, it's not considered to be the most popular matchup in StarCraft 2 overall. I mean, I personally really like it. But luckily for me, right here on YouTube, I get to cast whichever match I like, right? And because of that, I get to pick the absolute bangers. So let's find out exactly what ended up going down between the two very best Protoss players from the European region. Now, right from the get-go, this is sort of interesting. So MaxPax is, I think, considered to be the best PvP player in the world. But he's also, at a high level of StarCraft 2, pretty much the only player who goes for the low ground wall off. Practically every single Protoss player out there goes for the high ground wall instead. Now, ShoWTimE has decided to go for a single gate opener, which is a little bit strange. Stargate right now on the back of it, but normally what we see is gateway, cybercore, and then players will start messing around with some of those units, and MaxPax usually goes gateway, cybercore, and then eventually a tech structure here too. So usually he will have one gateway less than the opponent, and I guess that's one of the reasons why a lot of players are uncomfortable going for the low ground wall. You have to be so on point with your micro, because if you're not, well, you end up losing the game straight up. You'd also imagine though, since MaxPax is so popular, right, and so powerful in this matchup, that everybody else is going to be copying his strategies, but that is not quite the case, which is really kind of curious. When it comes to high-level StarCraft, usually when one player figures out a way, well, to play a matchup, quote-unquote, better, everybody else copies it. And I can imagine that all the top-level Protosses have given this build a try, but generally speaking, it's only MaxPax who ends up playing it. Alrighty, the Adepts shit around the map. I don't believe they're really going to be able to get a lot of damage in. That being said though, okay, ShoWTimE is going to be sending a probe towards the bottom left hand corner, and we're now arriving in one of the most awkward scenarios of this particular matchup. I think it's actually probably one of the most awkward encounters overall in StarCraft 2. So, Phoenix versus Phoenix. This is something I have covered several times before on the YouTube channel, but I can imagine, since I don't really cast a ton of PvPs, that not everybody is necessarily too familiar with Phoenix Wars. Phoenix Wars are funky. Because the unit can move and shoot at the same time, technically speaking, the only way you can disengage is if both players decide to disengage when the Phoenixes are fighting one another. That's one first thing here to note. If you are the guy with 20 Phoenixes and your opponent has 18, the guy with 20 Phoenixes will not win with 2 Phoenixes left over, but with like 12. The amount of additional damage you get from having a higher number is actually ridiculous. So oftentimes Phoenix Wars come down to just making as many Phoenixes as you can possibly, well, create. Phoenixes have an upgrade in the fleet beacon. So both players, by the way, going for a second Stargate, now that they've realized what is going on in this match. Neither of them is backing down from the Phoenix fight, as we do have MaxPax actually getting a little bit adventurous over here. Okay. There's an upgrade in the fleet beacon that gives the Phoenixes additional range. It's the Anion Pulse Crystals, however, it's expensive. Plus, on top of that, you also need to, of course, make the fleet beacon, which ultimately means that you're not making any of those Phoenixes in the process. So both players are going to try and build up their economy. Both of them want to be pumping out those 2 Phoenixes at once as much as possible. But then once they have a little bit of pocket change, they will be aiming for things like, for example, a fleet beacon, like, for example, that ranged upgrade. They will be going maybe into like the +1 air weapons. And recently, over the last few months, with the new multiplayer balance patch, players have also not necessarily been transitioning towards carriers from the Phoenix Wars. Ooh. Okay. Apparently we're gonna disengage for now. It's difficult to count how many your opponent has, right? Anyways, a popular addition right now, if we can get there, is for players to add on a Mothership instead. So the Mothership right now is a little bit cheaper than it once used to be. It's also a little bit less powerful, but obviously it's a massive amount of health. And because of that, if your opponent's Phoenixes are shooting at the Mothership, they're not shooting at the Phoenixes. It gets very messy very fast. Yeah, so look at these guys. They've been tiptoeing around each other, but really only just now is when we see the very first units going down in the game. And it turns out it's, well, the Zealots, and I guess a Council Pylon over there. Okay, MaxPax, the first player here to be brave enough to go into the Fleet Beacon at home. He wants to stack up his units, and he wants to see if he can maybe get an engagement in and then back off. The Adept over here providing a little bit of vision. Okay, one Phoenix goes down, 2 Phoenixes on the side of MaxPax. Both players, though, decide to back up. Good start right there for ShoWTimE, even though it's only 1 Phoenix. And I don't really want to oversell you on it, but there's no denying that he will end up with a larger Phoenix number overall, right? And at some point, I mean, if these guys, you know, almost like latch onto each other with the Phoenixes, they can no longer, well, run away. Alright, third Nexus coming up on both sides of the map. There's the Anion's Pulse Crystals coming up here for MaxPax. So there is a little bit of a timing attack here. It's small, but if he can continue chrono boosting it out, since the Fleet Beacon only just now, it finished. He's gonna have a timing window of like 10 seconds. The thing is, he doesn't know that, so I don't think he's really gonna be able to exploit it. But there is technically an opportunity for MaxPax to force the engagement while his opponent is not gonna be able to back off because his Phoenixes will have additional range. Okay. So far, both players mostly just carefully stepping around the map, right? MaxPax showing that he's not afraid to really move out, but he ended up losing 2 Phoenixes, whereas his opponent only lost 1. So there's not really a whole lot you can do. Now, there's this weird moment as well where you can almost start thinking, okay, has my opponent given up on the Phoenixes altogether? Like, what if he just decides to go like Archons or something? I can't lift up Archons. Technically, it's an option, but generally speaking, it's not something that really happens, as instead, both players now go for a 3rd Stargate. So despite the beginning here and the weird building positioning, I guess, for both players, or maybe not weird, but the different building positioning, we really have both players just going for identical strategies here. You can see it reflected in the supply counts. You can see it reflected in basically everything here. So I guess, yeah, 18 versus 18 Phoenix is where we're currently at. One thing to also note is that the defender's advantage is really quite nice if you're fighting on a shield battery, for example, or even a shield battery overcharge. That's really handy, as we do now have a Mothership coming up right here for MaxPax. So apparently he's cutting out 1 Phoenix here, temporarily, to, yeah, get that Mothership going. MaxPax is the first player here that will be able to get a Mothership out, but I do believe that ShoWTimE is going to be doing the exact same thing here as well momentarily, as he's now the one moving around the map a little bit more aggressively. He believes he's got the bigger numbers. He's feeling confident because of the Anion Pulse Crystals, but he needs to be very careful. Does he see the Mothership? I don't know if he's actually had vision of it, but he is going to go after some of these workers. Gotta be so careful. You want to keep them stacked up so they all fire at the same spot, and here we go. This is so weird. Who's winning this fight? Well, your guess is as good as mine. I guess with the units tab open, you can kind of keep track of what's going on, but I like this position a little bit better overall, though, I think, for ShoWTimE, because he did end up killing a few of his opponent's probes, and he does have a 4th Nexus coming, albeit one that's a little bit later than the one that MaxPax is already producing right over here on the low ground. And there we go. Mothership coming up as well for ShoWTimE 2. As well and 2 in the same sentence. Nice, Lowko. Sick commentary. Alrighty, probe leading the charge over here, mostly just to provide a little bit of vision, because again, robo facilities are nice. But the thing is, yeah, probes can build pylons, and Phoenixes can't kill pylons, so you can get like a nice spotter unit. Just like that. Look at him. MaxPax pretending that the opponent's side of the map is his main base. Now the Mothership is out. Keep in mind that all of the Mothership abilities these days are cooldown based. So that's something that he can make use of every time he really wants to engage. I guess the cloaking field is really, really handy. Once again, a couple Phoenixes here are getting blown up. I'll switch over to the units tab. And there it is. There's the cloaking field being activated. And this looks like a banger of an engagement to me. Mothership going in the front as well. But that being said, nice targeting here by ShoWTimE. Not allowing too many of his Phoenixes to fire on the Mothership. Here's the other Mothership coming out right now, though. ShoWTimE is the one who temporarily gets that cloaking upgrade. And he does finish up his opponent's Mothership. Okay. That already was weird, right? That's a little bit strange. Now, there's a Mothership fight later on in this game that I saw posted on the StarCraft 2 subreddit that just looked weird to me. Like, even stranger than this one. So that's a Mothership coming in clutch to kill a Mothership. You'd imagine that the Motherships needs, you know, to stick together or something. But anyways, apparently there's, ooh. Okay, he gets one. Nice poke in there by the red Protoss. Yeah, there's a weird situation in this matchup that arrives every once in a while. We see a lot of Stalker Wars as well, right? Those make a lot more sense. Generally speaking, though, look at him. Placing pylons right next to his opponent's structures, just so he can keep tabs of exactly what's happening. Not the case, by the way, for Mr. ShoWTimE. He did not build any pylons on the other side of the map, as MaxPax is now... well, becoming next-door neighbors with his opponent, first and foremost, but secondly, he's also proxying a base. He's decided to skip this one. That's an interesting situation. Both players going into the attack upgrades. +1 is a little bit later here for ShoWTimE, as it's already finished for MaxPax. Carriers are also coming, but it's a second Cybercore right here for the player in blue. Photon Cannon is slowly going to start getting rid of some of those pylons. The Mothership obviously has an anti-air ability too. A couple probes here do get caught on the transfer, but it's going to come at the cost of one of those Phoenixes. What's difficult to judge, right, as a player at this particular moment in the game is where you're actually at. Because we can kind of look at the units tab. Okay, here we go again. There's an observer in the mix, which is really handy. If the opponent also manages to get an observer, though, obviously you can shut down the observer using your observer. We can kind of look at the units tab and figure out exactly where we're at. So, you know, all things considered, I like this position better now for Mr. MaxPax. But it's really difficult for him to judge how many of those Phoenixes from the opponent he just killed and how many, you know, he still has remaining himself. Like, you gotta keep in mind that we have perfect information and it's still difficult to judge here for us. For them, the entire map is dark, and they don't, well, other than the stuff that they've taken themselves, but they don't really know exactly how much the opponent is producing. Are they going for a really greedy transition into multiple carriers all at once? Do we see another Mothership follow-up? Do I have to be concerned about all of this? Carriers are good, don't get me wrong, but Phoenixes can deal with them. Especially with the ranged upgrade. There's, by the way, the second Cybercore as well for MaxPax. So he's going to be able to catch up with those double upgrades pretty neat. Or pretty neatly. Mothership once again coming up as well for ShoWTimE. I do love watching this matchup, though. I'll be honest with you, not a fan of playing it. It's so difficult to play this, but... as a viewer, as a commentator, I'm a fan. Okay. So ShoWTimE is going to be faster here on those additional upgrades, and he's also going into the shields research right now. That is the +2 shields upgrade. And ultimately, apparently all the roads do lead to SkyToss. MaxPax right now needs to wait, I guess, until this Nexus finishes up. So he can actually, well, get the supply that he needs to produce his last carrier here. Should be available very soon. Actually, no. He's still, yeah, he's already started warping in other units here as well. So he's going to be supply blocked because he's maxed. Or he's maxed packs. Loki, you're so funny. I'm going to hit the like button. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll be here all day. Perfect. Now, how do you decide what you do? All right, we're going to go for a recall towards the bottom left-hand corner of the map. Mothership is off by itself, however. There is a pylon there, and I think it may have been spotted. But just seeing the Mothership, I guess you assume as well that the opponent's army is going to be close by. Yeah, ShoWTimE right now maneuvering around the top section of the map, but the carrier Phoenix Force has arrived in the bottom left-hand corner instead. Keep in mind, though, that the Mothership has an ability called Mass Recall, and that's exactly what MaxPax, I think, here is aiming to do. He can recall units towards the northern section of the map. He's also brought a sentry for the Guardian Shield, which can be very, very handy. That Nexus ends up going down. Lovely movement right here by the Danish Protoss. Mothership moving forward. Sentry caught on the wrong side of that wall-off. Are we gonna recall these troops right now towards the top section of the map? That's exactly what we end up doing, as ShoWTimE is doing the exact same thing as well up north. This is mass recall versus mass recall. Ultimately, though, ShoWTimE right here is the one fighting on top of some of his static defense, and it looks to me like MaxPax has been pushed back in this scenario. What a beautiful engagement. In all those years of StarCraft 2, I have not seen the counter of mass recall being mass recall. You try to bring all of your units into that engagement all at the same time. Oh, MaxPax forced to back off right now, but he's got a ton of money in the bank. He's been outmining his opponent for a long time now, mostly with the amount of probes that he's produced compared to the opponent. He's going for additional Stargates here, but that's mostly just because he needs to be careful here that he doesn't just get overwhelmed by this bulldozer of a blue army. I mean, ShoWTimE is ready to just go straight through the right side of the map. He's now gonna fly into the natural. Yeah, who cares about the ramps? Not relevant when your entire army flies. He's gonna be able to just get on top of the production right now, and I think MaxPax, he thought he was being so clever with his movement right there with the Mothership, and I do agree with him, but he did not expect his opponent to prematurely recall towards that location as well, to bring the defensive army a little bit closer to that base. 42 probes have gone down. MaxPax has realized that he can't really take on this army head on, so instead, he decides to go in for the counterattack himself. Carriers are flying across the map, but they're slow units. Phoenixes, yeah, I like this a lot. Phoenixes decide to dive on top of all of those Stargates. Oh, if only he knew that there were 3 more carriers just sneaking away from the rest of this pack, but it doesn't really matter all too much. Ultimately, the main base right now from MaxPax is getting destroyed, and you can see his supply count really dwindling. That being said, though, his army is still significant. He's got to be able to get rid of his opponent's probes as well. New base over here acquired on the left side of the map. Having those Phoenixes on top of where those carriers spawned, really, really nice. Man, if only he could have caught these 3 as well. I think he just barely lacked the vision of it. ShoWTimE moving around with his army, mostly just in one big ball. There's the defensive Mothership. We're now going to recall towards the Nexus here as well. Nexus is going to provide those units. Okay, a little bit of time. Are we going to be able to drop a time warp? We will indeed drop a time warp. One carrier here ends up going down. Mothership in blue taking a bunch of damage as well. Shield battery here helping out. ShoWTimE decides to place this, or he decides to play this save as he backs up momentarily. He's waiting to see if maybe those abilities are going to run out. Observer joins the fray once again for ShoWTimE, but MaxPax realizes it's not going to happen. And it's ShoWTimE who obtains the victory. Okay, I just want to have another look at this fight. So, ShoWTimE decides to leave his Mothership over here on this expansion. He recalls outside of the vision radius of MaxPax. Now he sees what's going on, but his army is already caught off guard. And in a crazy battle, I mean, Guardian Shield is nice and all. Time warps, they can certainly help, but in a crazy battle, this is where ShoWTimE seals the deal. Beautiful.